So my speech is kind of to inform you all about what's going on in current events in Syria today. Here we go. So imagine, if you will, walking into your old middle school classroom. You're sitting down at your desk, waiting for the bell to ring, and you're listening, but you hear a high-pitched whistling coming through the window. Within seconds, you're on your back, flat on the ground. Your skin is burning off, melting, as it were. And all of a sudden, you try to scream, but your throat has collapsed. You've just been the victim of a chemical attack. Some attacks have occurred in Syria over the past 2 months, unfortunately targeting schools mistaken for rebel strongholds. The United States is now on the brink of war, and in a situation very similar to 2003 before the invasion of Iraq. The only difference, weapons of mass destruction are now definitely present. The U.S. has 3 options of action we can take against Syria. We can first bomb through a series of aerial attacks over these strongholds and stockpiles of these weapons. We can place troops on the ground with UN inspectors who can actually disarm these weapons. Or we can sit back and let these attacks keep on continuing and human rights violations continue on. I believe the only way to be successful is to place troops on the ground and to be able to insert UN peacekeeping forces in a secure environment to disarm these weapons. There's many different factors, though, that we need to consider before becoming involved in such a hairy conflict. We must first understand the history and the different players that are in this conflict. First off, the conflict started off right after the Arab Spring, which started in Egypt and then slowly spread out throughout most of the Middle East. In April 2001, the peaceful protesters were in the streets of most of Syria, and the Syrian army was then deployed to quell off the uprisings. Unfortunately, force was used. Hundreds of people were murdered in the streets by these Syrian soldiers, ordered to be there by Assad. The Assad regime is now backed by Hezbollah and also by the Russians, supporting both with arms and by millions of dollars they're dumping into their military. Now the rebel groups are formed of the Free Syrian Army, which is basically disbanded soldiers from the old Syrian army who are trying to protect the people. These are the groups that the U.S. is currently backing. And then there's a radical rebel group that's called Al-Nusra, of the Al-Nusra Front, which is basically a radical jihadist group forming on radical Islamic beliefs. They're basically modern-day terrorists. The first and the most serious attack occurred in August 2013, so last month, in Ghouta, which is a district around Damascus, where the rockets were containing a chemical gas called sarin. This is all according to NBC, and now is confirmed by the UN. With these attack methods that we could actually respond to these clear violations of human rights, the first of which I mentioned was airstrikes. This would be a very dangerous proposition because these weapons are very fragile. If you strike them with a bomb, it will actually release the chemical itself. And that is a problem because a lot of these stockpiles are within areas where there are millions of people that dwell. Not millions, but thousands and thousands of people that dwell. So they would spread and there would be fallout throughout all these residential neighborhoods. Not becoming involved would also be a problem because, this, like I said, the attacks would continue. And already, according to the New York Times, there's 100,000 people is what the death count is currently, and that would only continue. Also, more human rights would be violated. There are thousands of political prisoners that are being tortured in prisons across the country today. The only way to properly approach this is to insert tactical teams to secure these areas where these weapon stockpiles are, be able to send in UN inspectors that will disarm these weapons, and then get out. We do not want to have a prolonged conflict. To wrap this all up, I believe this is the only method we can really do to insert our moral responsibility as people to protect, citizens of the world. The only effective way would be to obviously insert these groups, like I said, but the problem is there are so many different players at stake. In fact, in the past week, there's been multiple changes that have happened. And now, there's a current article that's just released that Assad has now released all locations, quote, all locations of these strongholds. However, I highly doubt that they're all these locations that have been released. Russia has now volunteered to be part of the security group that will enforce the disarmament with the UN. However, they are the ones that are supporting the Assad regime. This is a huge problem, and I think that we all should be very much aware of it, and I encourage everyone to follow it going forward.